My name is Sylvia Moore, and I'm 35 years old. If you asked anyone in my family to describe me, they'd probably say I'm the dependable one, the person who always steps up, the one who never says no. It sounds flattering until you realize what it really means. I've been their unpaid assistant my whole life. When I was 8, my mom, Margaret, would call me into the kitchen. Sylvia, sweetie, can you help set the table? She'd say, in that gentle, expectant tone that left no room for refusal. But it was never just setting the table. No, it was folding napkins into magazine-perfect triangles, spacing plates exactly 2 inches from the edge, polishing silverware until I could see my own reflection. If anything wasn't perfect, she'd sigh a long, disappointed sound that used to make my stomach twist. You'll get it eventually, she'd say, like she was training me to be her little housemaid instead of her daughter. My brother Daniel, 3 years older, somehow escaped all of it. When he was 15 and had a science fair project due, I was the one building his papier-mâché volcano while he lounged on the couch watching cartoons. When he won third place, Mom beamed at him, kissed his cheek, and said, "We're so proud of you." I remember waiting for her to say, "We're proud of you too, Sylvia," but she didn't. Then there was Sophie, the baby of the family born when I was 14. Everything about her was precious. Her curls, her giggles, her tantrums. If she spilled juice, Mom would coo, "Oh, Sophie, you're so silly." But if I forgot to unload the dishwasher, it was Sylvia. "Why can't you be more responsible?" By the time I hit high school, I was the family's invisible backbone. I cooked, cleaned, helped Daniel with essays, babysat Sophie, and organized every birthday and barbecue. Not once did anyone say thank you. They didn't even notice what I did. They just expected it. One summer, Mom decided to throw a neighborhood barbecue. Without asking, she handed me a handwritten list. Marinate chicken, prep salads, set up tables, decorate. Daniel played video games while Sophie chased bubbles in the yard. I remember standing in the kitchen, knife in hand, watching my reflection in the oven door and thinking, this can't be normal, can it? But then Mom walked in, smiled, and said, "You're the only one I can count on, Sylvia." Those words, "the only one I can count on," should have made me proud. Instead, they felt like chains tightening around my wrists. I learned early that saying no wasn't an option. It wasn't just about chores. It was about identity. If I refused, if I disappointed them, I wasn't helpful, Sylvia. I was difficult. And in our family, difficult was worse than lazy. So I kept saying yes, even when I was exhausted, even when my friends went out and I stayed home folding laundry that wasn't mine, even when Daniel got praised for mowing the lawn once a month while I spent every weekend keeping the house spotless. When I left for college, I thought things might change. I didn't go far, just a 20-minute drive from home, but I hoped distance would buy me freedom. It didn't. Mom would call during lectures saying things like, "Sylvia, can you swing by to help me move the sofa?" Or "Sophie needs cupcakes for her school bake sale." If I said no, she'd sigh, "I don't know what I'd do without you." I used to believe that line meant love. Now I know it meant leverage. Even when I started my event planning business, nothing changed. "Since you're so good at organizing," Mom would say, "could you plan Sophie's birthday party?" Just a few ideas. Those few ideas always turned into full-scale productions, themes, vendors, decorations. One year, she wanted a circus party with a popcorn machine and live clown. I spent weeks arranging everything, only for her to tell her friends. Isn't it amazing what you can do with Pinterest? I remember standing behind her that day, hearing laughter ripple through the room and feeling my chest tighten. She wasn't being cruel, at least not intentionally. That was the problem. In her mind, I wasn't a person with boundaries. I was useful, and useful people don't need credit. I told myself it didn't matter. I was strong, independent, successful, all the words you tell yourself when you're trying to hide how small you feel inside. But deep down, I was tired. Tired of earning affection through service. Tired of being invisible unless something needed to be done. Looking back, I should have drawn the line sooner. I should have said, "No, I won't plan your parties or fix your problems." But I didn't. I kept quiet, hoping one day they'd see me, really see me. That day never came. Instead, the next time the phone rang and Mom's name flashed on the screen, she said the words that would change everything. "Sylvia Daniel just got engaged. You'll plan the wedding, right?" I didn't know it yet, but that wedding, my brother's perfect, beautiful wedding, would be the moment my loyalty finally broke. When Mom called about Daniel's engagement, I was sitting at my desk surrounded by half-finished client proposals and fabric swatches. The excitement in her voice was so bright it almost hurt my ears. "Sylvia, you'll plan it right. No one else could make it special like you can. I stared at the phone, torn between pride and dread. Here we go again. Mom, I said carefully, that's my job. I can't plan a whole wedding for free. There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. For free, Sylvia, he's your brother. You can't charge family. That line, you can't charge family, hit me like deja vu. Every time I tried to value myself, she'd guilt me right back into servitude. I caved. I always did. At first, I told myself I'd just advise, recommend a few vendors, maybe coordinate timelines. But somehow within a week, I was knee-deep in contracts, budgets, and mood boards. Then there was Erica Daniels' fiancé, Polished, demanding the kind of woman who always got what she wanted. She called me one afternoon, voice syrupy sweet. Hi, Sylvia. I've made a small list for you. It wasn't small. It was 3 pages long. I need a venue for 200 people, she said, with a view, something elegant, but not expensive. Maybe under 5,000, I bit my tongue. In her world, budget-friendly meant make the impossible happen. Weeks bled into months. My days became a cycle of frantic phone calls, mock-ups, and late-night vendor crises. I stopped sleeping properly. I turned down 2 paying clients just to keep up. And Daniel, he was useless. Every time I asked for input, he'd shrug. Whatever Erica wants, just make her happy. I was drowning while they floated. By month 3, the cracks began to show. Erica changed her mind, weekly garden wedding, then rustic barn, then classic ballroom elegance. I started dreaming of flower arrangements and waking up to the sound of phantom phone pings. When she asked me to hand-make 200 invitations, because the store ones don't feel personal, something in me snapped. I remember looking at her message, my fingers trembling over the keyboard, typing and deleting the words, "I'm not your employee." But I didn't send it. Instead, I stayed up 3 nights straight, cutting, gluing, tying ribbons until my fingers blistered. When I delivered them, she smiled, that kind of tight, polite smile people give when they're unimpressed. "They're fine," she said. I just imagined more gold accents. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I might scream. By the time the wedding day arrived, I was hollowed out. I'd been up since 5, managing the florist, the caterer, the DJ, everything. The venue looked breathtaking. Candlelight shimmered across the tables, the flowers glowed under soft chandeliers. For one brief moment, I felt proud. Then Daniel stood up to give his speech. He thanked everyone, Erica's parents, his friends, even the DJ. Not me. I sat there frozen, staring at the man who'd called me every night for 6 months, asking for help. My name didn't pass his lips once. When I saw him after he grinned and clapped my shoulder. "Great job, Sylvia." Everyone loved it. That was the moment it clicked. They didn't see me as a sister. I was a service, a convenience. As the guests danced, I wandered outside. The air was cool, the music muffled behind the doors. I stared at the fairy lights flickering over the courtyard and whispered to myself, never again. But inside, I didn't feel empowered. I felt empty, because deep down, I knew I was lying. I was addicted to approval, to being needed, to that brief flicker of gratitude that never lasted. So when Mom called the next morning all cheerful, saying, "Wasn't it beautiful, Sylvia? We couldn't have done it without you," I wanted to scream. We. No, Mom. I. But instead I said the same thing I always did. Yeah, it was beautiful. That wedding didn't just exhaust me. It broke something I didn't know could break my belief that love meant sacrifice. From that day on, every favor they asked came with a sting. Every compliment sounded like a command. I told myself I was done, that next time I'd say no. But the thing about people pleasers, we don't stop until we crash. And my crash came wrapped in glitter and balloons, my sister Sophie's college gala. When Sophie called me that afternoon, her voice was bubbling with excitement. "Sylvia, you'll never guess I've been chosen to plan our sorority's spring gala." There it was again, the setup disguised as small talk. I could already hear the gears turning. I forced a polite smile, even though she couldn't see it. "That's great, Soph. Congratulations." "Thanks," she chirped. "But, I could really use your help. You're like the best event planner ever." There it was, the ask, always hidden behind flattery. I took a deep breath. "Sophie, I can't. I've got a full workload this month and this kind of thing." "But you love planning events," she interrupted, her tone light, but laced with guilt. "And you'd be saving my life. I'm drowning here." I hesitated for a split second, old habits dying hard, but forced myself to say it. "No, Sophie, I can't." The line went quiet. Then came the sigh, sharp and deliberate. "Wow, so much for being a supportive sister." Click, she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, half angry, half relieved. It was the first time in years I'd said no without softening it. For a few weeks, I thought that was the end of it. I imagined her figuring things out, maybe learning that not everything in life came pre-organized by Big Sister. But then 3 weeks before the gala, she called again. This time she was crying. Sylvia, everything's falling apart. The venue canceled, the caterer quit, and the decorations are a mess. Please just tell me what to do. I'm begging you. I sighed, rubbing my temples. The exhaustion in her voice hit me right in my guilt reflex, the one my family had spent years tuning like a piano. Fine, I said. I'll give you some advice, but that's all. Advice. I walked her through backup plans, quick vendor lists, time management tips, the basics. She sounded so relieved, so grateful that for a second I almost felt proud again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she gushed. You're a lifesaver. But I should have known better. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. Can you design the invitations? Just a simple layout. Then, do you think you could check the venue's contract? You're better with details. And my favorite, no one else gets my vision like you do. Each message chipped away at the thin boundary I'd tried to build. By the time the gala rolled around, my inbox looked like a project management board. The night before the event, she called again this time, sobbing. Everything's ruined. The tablecloths don't match. The flowers are wrong. The DJ's ghosting me. Everyone's going to think I'm a failure. I closed my eyes. Sophie, you waited until the last minute. You can't expect miracles, she sniffled. I just thought it would be easier. Maybe next time, I said quietly, don't volunteer for something you can't handle. She didn't answer. She just hung up. The next morning, I opened Instagram. Sophie's photos from the gala were everywhere. The lighting harsh, the decorations sloppy, the catering served in aluminum trays. Her caption read, not perfect, but we made it happen. I actually smiled. It wasn't cruel. It was relief. Maybe finally she'd learned that not everything magically fixes itself. But I should have known better than to underestimate her. A week later, she called again. Sylvia, she said, her voice trembling with anger. You ruined my gala. I blinked. What? If you had helped me, it would have been amazing, but you were too selfish to care. I actually laughed. Sophie, I gave you advice. I told you what to do. You didn't show up, she snapped. You're supposed to have my back. That hit something deep, because for years I had her back. Every scraped knee, every missed homework deadline, every birthday she forgot to plan, I was there. Always. But this time, something inside me shifted. My voice came out steady, almost frighteningly calm. I've had your back your whole life, Sophie, but I'm done. You're an adult now. Figure it out yourself. And I hung up. For months, she barely spoke to me. At family dinners, she'd make snide little comments. Some people just don't care about family anymore, and my mother would tut softly, trying to play mediator. Sylvia, can't you just apologize, Mom would say. She's still learning what I'd snap. How to manipulate people better. Daniel, of course, sided with her. She's just a kid, he said one night, glass of wine in hand. She's 18, I replied. Not a kid, an adult who refuses to act like one. It was exhausting. Every conversation felt like walking through mud. No matter how much I explained, I was always the villain, the cold, ungrateful sister who forgot her roots. But something unexpected happened. For the first time in my life, I didn't cave. I didn't apologize. I didn't offer to fix things. And that silence, that decision not to mend everything felt powerful. When I saw Sophie months later at Thanksgiving, she avoided my eyes. Her gala had been a joke on campus. She'd lost her event coordinator position, and everyone knew it. Part of me felt bad. Another part, the part that had carried this family for decades, felt free. I told myself this was it, the last lesson, the last time I'd ever let them use me. But I was wrong, because the next time Mom called, it wasn't about Sophie's failure or Daniel's wedding. It was about a dinner party. And this time they didn't just take me for granted, they erased me. It started like every other favor disguised as conversation. My phone buzzed one Thursday evening while I was finalizing a proposal for a corporate client. Mom's name. I hovered over the screen debating whether to answer. My better judgment whispered, don't do it. But curiosity won. It always did. Sylvia, Mom's voice was bright, rehearsed, cheerful in that way that meant she wanted something. You'll come early on Saturday to set the table right. I frowned. What's happening Saturday? The dinner party, darling Daniel's celebrating his promotion. I froze. I didn't get an invite. Well, of course not, she said casually. It's mostly his colleagues and their spouses. You wouldn't really fit in. I blinked, the words sinking in like slow poison. So, I'm not invited. But you want me to come set the table? Exactly, she said, like it was the most logical thing in the world. You're so good at these things, Sylvia. You've always had an eye for detail. For a few seconds, I couldn't even speak. I just listened to her voice, familiar, loving, and completely oblivious to how cruel she sounded. You'll be here by 4, she continued. Don't forget to bring those cloth napkins you used for Sophie's graduation. The cream ones. We might run out. I hung up. No goodbye, no yes, just click. I sat there for a long moment, my heart pounding in my ears. Not invited, but expected to work. It wasn't new, really. I'd been invisible for years, but something about the bluntness of it burned. Like she'd finally said out loud what she'd always believed. I'm not part of this family. I'm part of their service staff. For 2 days, I stewed. Every time I opened my phone, I imagined calling her back, telling her no, telling her exactly how it felt to be treated like furniture. But I didn't. Instead, I planned. By Saturday morning, a strange calm had settled over me, the kind that comes before a storm you've decided not to avoid. When I arrived, Mom was in full hostess mode, pearls apron hair, perfectly styled. Oh, good, you're here, she chirped, barely looking up. We've got a lot to do. The dining room was immaculate candles lined up silver-polished crystal glasses waiting to sparkle. I could see my own reflection in them, distorted and small. Start with the table, she said. Daniel wants the blue plates tonight. They look more professional. Sure, I said softly, setting my purse down. But inside, something dark and steady was taking shape. It wasn't rage exactly, it was precision. First, I swapped the linen napkins for cheap paper ones I found in the pantry, the kind with cartoon lemons printed on them. Then I mixed up the cutlery salad forks where dessert spoons should be dinner knives turned the wrong way. I adjusted the chairs, each one just slightly off-center, and tilted the candles so they leaned like wilted flowers. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just imperfect enough to gnaw at her. Then came the appetizers, tiny gourmet canapes from some expensive caterer. I arranged them neatly and accidentally dropped one tray on the floor. Oh, shoot, I muttered too softly for her to hear. The rest went into the fridge. But before I closed the door, I turned the temperature dial all the way down. By dinner time, they'd be half frozen. And then the pièce de résistance, the wine. 2 imported bottles Daniel had been bragging about for weeks. I poured a generous amount of salt into each one, shook them gently, and resealed the corks. I even left a cheaper bottle out on the counter, just to confuse things further. Mom flitted around me, humming to herself, oblivious. She didn't notice the crooked napkins or mismatched plates. She didn't notice that I wasn't smiling. When I told her I had to step out for an errand, she just waved a hand. Be back before guests arrive, dear. I wasn't coming back. Instead, I drove downtown, walked into my favorite little restaurant, and ordered dinner for 1. While I ate warm, lighting, quiet music, a glass of wine that wasn't salted, my phone buzzed nonstop. First, Mom, where are you? Guests are arriving. Then Daniel. This isn't funny, Sylvia. The appetizers are still in the fridge. I silenced the phone, took another sip, and smiled. Later that night, my best friend Maya texted me. Check Erica's Instagram. When I opened it, I nearly choked laughing. The first photo showed the dinner table, a chaotic mess of mismatched plates, crooked cutlery, and unlit candles. The caption read, "When your sister promises to help, then bails last minute." The next photo was even better. Daniel pouring a glass of salted wine, his face twisted in disgust. Erica's caption, "Note to self, never trust Sylvia with anything." By the time I got home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. No guilt, no regret, just quiet satisfaction. I thought that would be enough, that this little rebellion would teach them to see me differently. But I should have known better, because in the Moore family, the person who stops serving doesn't become respected. She becomes the villain. The fallout was instant. By Sunday morning, my phone was a war zone. Missed calls, angry texts, voicemails dripping with guilt and outrage. Daniel's first message, "I can't believe you'd sabotage my big night. What kind of sister does that?" Then another, "You embarrassed me in front of my boss. Do you even care about anyone but yourself?" I stared at the screen, half in disbelief, half amused. Care about anyone but myself. That was rich, coming from the people who'd treated me like a personal assistant for decades. Then came Erica's voicemail. Her voice was sharp, trembling with fake composure. "Sylvia, you embarrassed Daniel in front of important people. Do you know how that makes us look? You've always been unpredictable, but this was cruel." I didn't even listen to the rest. I deleted it mid-sentence. And then came Mom. "Sylvia," she began, voice tight with fury. "Your behavior was completely unacceptable. I didn't bother arguing at first. I just let her go on the tone of righteous disappointment I'd heard all my life. I expected more from you, she continued. You've always been the reliable one. This was so out of character. That part made me laugh. Out of character. Mom, you asked me to set the table for a dinner I wasn't invited to. Well, yes, she snapped. You're good at it. I went quiet, then said evenly, I'm done being your maid. You can find someone else to exploit. She gasped like I'd slapped her. Exploit Sylvia, we're family. Exactly, I said softly. And family is supposed to appreciate each other, not use them. I hung up before she could reply. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. But as I soon learned, the Moores didn't handle rejection quietly. By Monday, the gossip had spread like wildfire through our small town. My mom's version of events, polished sympathetic, was already circulating. I don't know what's gotten into Sylvia, she apparently told her friends. She's become so selfish. Selfish. The word that women get branded with the moment they stop being convenient. I started hearing things secondhand. A neighbor mentioned it to a client. A cousin sent a concerned message asking if I was okay. One of my old aunts texted, Families fight dear. Don't let pride ruin everything. Pride. Another word that really means you stopped bending over backward for us and it makes us uncomfortable. At first, the isolation stung. The silence at family dinners. The absence of messages except the angry ones. But as days turned into weeks, that silence began to feel liberating. Without them, my world felt light. I worked better, slept better, even laughed more. There were no guilt calls, no emotional traps, just peace. But peace, I learned, is something manipulators can't stand. About a month later, Sophie popped back into my life predictably through text. Hey, Sylvia, hope you're doing okay. I miss you. For a second, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think maybe after everything she finally saw how wrong they'd been. So I replied, I'm fine, what's up? Her answer came immediately. Mom's 60th birthday is coming up. We're throwing her a surprise party. I was hoping you could help plan it. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then started laughing a deep, bitter laugh that startled even me. Of course, there it was, the real reason. I can't, I typed. I'm too busy. She fired back instantly. Seriously, Sylvia. This is Mom's big day. Can't you put your pride aside for one night? There it was again, pride. Like having boundaries was arrogance. It's not pride, I wrote back. It's boundaries. Good luck with the party. She didn't reply. The party came and went without me. I saw the photos online, all smiles, all captions about family love and togetherness. And yet as I scrolled through them, I felt nothing. No envy, no guilt, no sadness, just a strange, steady calm. Weeks passed, then months. And I started to realize something when I stopped giving them my time, my energy, my availability. They had nothing left to take. And without me holding everything together, their perfect little world began to wobble. Daniel's new job turned out to be less glamorous than he'd made it sound. Rumors spread that he was struggling with his team. Sophie's friendships fractured after her failed gala and Mom. Mom didn't have anyone to complain to when things went wrong. For the first time, they had to live without their fixer. And me, I was learning to live without being needed. It wasn't easy. There were nights I missed the idea of family, the comfort of belonging, even if that belonging came at the cost of myself. But then I'd remember the truth. Love shouldn't feel like servitude. Then one evening, about a year after the dinner party fiasco, my phone buzzed again. Mom! For a long time, I just stared at the name. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity, that old weakness, got me again. Her voice when I picked up wasn't sharp or superior this time. It was soft, almost trembling. Sylvia, she said, how are you, honey? That word honey hit me like a memory from another life. I'm fine, I said cautiously. What's going on? She hesitated, then sighed. We've been talking, me, Daniel, and Sophie. We realize we owe you an apology. I froze. An apology. From them. I should have felt happy, vindicated. But instead a cold unease settled in my stomach. Something wasn't right. Why now, I asked. What changed? There was a long pause before she answered. Well, we've been struggling. Things haven't been the same without you. I almost laughed. There it is. The truth peeking through the cracks of guilt and sweetness. What do you need, Mom? I asked quietly. And when she said the next words, I felt that old familiar exhaustion crawl right back up my spine. Rachel's wedding is coming up, she said, and we really need your help. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Rachel's what I asked flatly. Her wedding. Mom repeated, her voice wobbling with forced warmth. You're so talented, Sylvia. No one can do what you do. We really need your touch to make it special. There it was, the same old script, just dressed in sentimentality. The apology had been nothing but a prelude to a request. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I could almost hear the years collapsing on top of each other, every favor, every guilt trip, every sigh that started with, "You're the only one I can count on." "Let me get this straight," I said, my tone calm, almost detached. "You're apologizing because you need me to fix Rachel's wedding." "That's not fair," she rushed to say. "We miss you, Sylvia. We want to make things right." I laughed, a low, hollow sound that surprised even me. "No, you don't. You just want your fixer back." There was silence on the line. For once, she didn't have a comeback. I could almost imagine her sitting there, holding the phone like a fragile prop, realizing her old tricks weren't landing anymore. "Sylvia, please," she finally whispered. "Rachel's been so upset. She really wants you there." "Upset," I echoed. "You mean the same Rachel who called me selfish, who blamed me for her failures?" "She suddenly misses me." "She's grown since then," Mom insisted weakly. "She's changed." "Has she?" I asked. "Or does she just need free labor?" Her silence said everything. I took a deep breath and said what I should have said years ago. "No, Mom. I'm not helping with the wedding. I'm not coming to the wedding. And I'm not going back to being the family doormat." "Sylvia, be reasonable." "No," I cut in, my voice firmer than I'd ever heard it. "You don't get it. You spent years treating me like I only existed to make your lives easier. Now you're realizing what life is like without me. But that's not my problem anymore." "Sylvia," she tried again this time, her voice breaking. "We're trying. Doesn't that count for something?" "Not when it's only because you need something," I said softly. "You're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry that it's inconvenient now that I'm gone." I could hear her breathing, shaky, uneven, and for a moment I felt a pang of something. Not guilt, just sadness. The kind that comes when you finally accept that someone will never change. "Sylvia," she said one last time, voice trembling, "please?" "No," I whispered and hung up. For a long while I just sat there. The quiet in my apartment was almost too heavy, like the silence after a storm. And yet beneath it, there was something else, something clean, calm, final. That was the last time I spoke to her. A few months later, I heard through mutual friends that Rachel's wedding had gone ahead without me. And predictably, it had been a disaster. The caterer canceled last minute. The venue double booked. The florist sent the wrong flowers. Guests were seated at the wrong tables. The photos online looked like a parody of a wedding chaos wrapped in forced smiles. When my friend Maya called me about it, she was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "So, vindicated much?" she teased. I smiled, sipping my coffee. I guess karma finally found a new planner. For the first time, I didn't feel smug, just peaceful. My family had finally experienced what life was like without me, and I didn't have to lift a finger. The months that followed were quiet, almost unnervingly so. No calls, no messages, no updates. But instead of feeling abandoned, I felt free. I started traveling more. Picked up clients I'd once been too busy to accept. Signed a contract for my first big corporate gala. I took long walks in the evenings, cooked for myself, learned to enjoy solitude without the constant hum of obligation in the background. And sometimes when I caught my reflection in a window or a cafe mirror, I barely recognized myself, lighter, sharper, alive. I even took a solo trip to Italy. On my second night in Florence, I sat by the Arno River, watching the city lights flicker across the water. I thought about my family, about Mom's sighs, Daniel's demands, Rachel's tantrums, and for the first time they felt like characters from someone else's story. That was when I realized something simple but powerful. Freedom isn't about running away. It's about choosing yourself every single day, even when it hurts. They'd called me selfish, difficult, ungrateful. Maybe they were right. But if being selfish means protecting the peace I fought to find, then I'll wear that word like armor. Because for the first time in 35 years, I'm not living for their approval. I'm living for me. And that I decided is the one event in my life I'll never let them plan again.